Definitely not Barry.
Blake got
There we
last
go.
time.
Hi.
Welcome back. It's been a minute.
It's been a month.
It has, yes. What did you do with your Thursday nights or your Thursday mornings that you got back? Did you just sit around and go, I don't have to do anything?
No, actually, on each Thursday I was doing something. So, like, last Thursday I was traveling, and the Thursday before I was like, well, we were getting lunch in at the harbor and visiting the beach and all that stuff. So it was pretty great. But hey, it's not just us tonight. We actually have a third person on with us, and we're having some technical difficulties. Although she's back, so let's see how we're doing. Hey, Kate, can you hear us from the great beyond? Are we? Can you hear us? Are you there with us? Okay, you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So
Oh, no worries. And we were listening to you and everything. It was like you were there.
You were there. You were there. So there's a little settings wheel. Make sure that the right mic is selected under audio. That might be the only thing I can think of.
And ironically, I interviewed her using this platform week before last, and it was all fine. So, so I blame it's your instance of.
It's my specific instance of this. What's happening? Yeah.
And it was working just before we went live as well. Yeah, can't hear.
Still nothing, Kate. We'll let you know when we can hear you. You keep plugging away over there. Barry and I are going to fill some dead air here with conversation. No, my vacation was way too short, and that's my one more thing this week. But I had 2 weeks off, and it still felt like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And then you come back, and you're juggling a bunch of dominoes. Is that juggling a bunch of balls, or like the dominoes are falling? Whatever analogy I'm trying to say, it's been a busy week. Yeah, it's been a very busy week, and it's like just really difficult to adapt. And now I feel like I have to make something up for my other one more thing. Although I have like 4 things for my one more thing. In fact, I'm going to put them in there now.
So you normally got those.
I have options.
Well, it's amazing.
What's that?
We've actually all done the notes as well. Well in advance. Amazing. Yeah, I feel like we're almost prepared.
We are almost prepared for this. Let's see here. Watch and what was the other thing? Oh shoot. I just had, it was the tip of my mouse. Okay, yeah, there's 2 things that happened to me. Okay, Kate, we're still having difficulty hearing you from the great beyond. Let's see. Are we? You are not muted on our end. Why don't you try leaving and then coming right back using the link, and we'll try that and see if that works out.
Probably close the browser and everything.
Yeah, or maybe try a different browser depending on.
It's all the electric off to the house and do that.
Yeah. All right, Kate will be right back. In the meantime, Barry, how are you?
I'm good. We're. I think you need to learn now to address me correctly.
Oh, Mr. President Barry Kirby, knighted sir.
No, it's good. I mean, obviously, since we've been away, because obviously the week before I couldn't make it because we were at EHF 2023, and that was an experience like I've never had. Sort of in the role that as president, so I got to introduce the main conference and all that sort of stuff. What an amazing experience to be able to just see so many people in the room and everybody be keen on what we were doing and all that sort of stuff. Brilliant. What we also learned is that not everybody can do karaoke. We learned that on but there's a whole bunch of we did there was Return of the Famous quiz on the first night, which was brilliant. And yeah, no, it was good fun. Really enjoyed it.
I've got to ask, what is the difference going to EHF as president versus going as anybody else?
Well, I guess going as president, firstly, what's really nice is we've talked about this before. I struggle going up to groups of people and sort of saying, hi, just come and randomly talk to me because I don't know who you are. Turns out when you're president, everybody does that to you. So it's great. So it was really, seriously, it was really nice to talk to so many people who wanted to tell us their story, get involved and do things. So that was really cool. The plus, also minus, was the standing up. Basically, I kicked off both days with introductions and then introducing speakers and stuff. So I couldn't drink too much the night before because I knew I had to be on the go first thing. So that was fine.
You're saying that's a con?
No, it's kind of a weird pro because you know that you couldn't do much about it. You just couldn't drink very much, and I still had 1 or 2 half like shandies, so that was great. But it was also, I think we talked about last year being, it was great to be back together and all this sort of stuff. But this year just felt, I keep on using the word buzz. There was such a buzz about it, but also I just felt a lot freer. And I think that this is the post-pandemic thing. That this is last year. I think everybody was still slightly on edge, and this, whereas this was just, really, really good. So
shackles are off.
Yeah, it was just a fab experience. And okay, I might be looking through slightly rose-tinted spectacles because of the position I had, but yeah, I loved it. It was really, really good fun. I think 3 days. 2 days of the main conference, and we got involved in the jobs fair the day before. But it didn't. If I could have easily gone for another couple of days, I was tired by the end of it.
Well, hey, hopefully third time's the charm here. We got Kate back. Hey, Kate, can you hear us now? And well, can we hear you now is the more important question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah! I think we can hear you now. Yes.
Right. Is
Good.
it a problem then?
Yeah,
could be.
Probably. Yeah. I mean, it serves you right for using an Apple. There we go. And just proves they're not worth the money. No, can't say that.
Well, I'm now on Chrome, so it seems to be better.
Yes, I should have said that in the email. Generally, this platform does prefer Chrome.
Okay. So that's your fault then.
It's president now. I can't be wrong. You should know this.
That's Mr. President, sir.
Oh, God.
To you.
Yeah, okay.
Wouldn't it be like American presidents that you'll always be known as president forever?
And but does that mean I also get Secret Service detail for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
That would be cool. I did suggest that we were reviewing some of the figures and in a preview of, because obviously we've started a new podcast as well with the Pulse, and on the one that's going to drop on Saturday morning, we preview some of the figures, some of the statistics coming out of conference, and we actually made a bit of a surplus, which is what we were aiming for, which is great. And so I suggested that sounds cool. We need a new president's car. That idea wasn't taken with the seriousness that I thought it would get taken. They thought it was a joke, and I was like, okay.
I would think a limo or something like that.
Well, no, I've seen what King Charles has now. I want one of them bad boys.
Do you want someone to drive you though? Because I think that's what I would want.
Yeah, that's true. It's I guess that because that's the other thing as well. Since we were last on, we've got a king. Well, we've got a crowned king, yep. Coronated king, whatever the word is. So we've had some extra holidays.
Great. I was there at the coronation. Not there yet. No, I wasn't inside, but I was in Hyde Park getting absolutely soaked.
Nice. Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
worked out.
We actually no, we watched that from our living room because that was fine. But then we had the coronation concert. I set up a projector in the back garden, and we watched it there. It was also the weekend of my wife's birthday, and so she wanted to. She sort of said, "I'd love to watch a film in the back garden," and so that was like, well, that's easy, except for the fact I'm now going to buy a projector screen, get everything set up with external feed for the telly and stuff, but have Amazon, will make things happen.
Yeah, to be fair, it's much better than getting soaked in Hyde Park, if I'm honest.
You're not soaking up the atmosphere and the all that good stuff, or just getting soaked?
It was just absolutely raining all day. It was awful.
But that's truly the truly British experience.
It was, yes. And I mean, I didn't go down. I'm Scottish, and I didn't go down with a waterproof jacket, which is, I went down with an umbrella thinking, oh, it's England, it's tropical.
Yeah, I was going to say, you being Scottish, that should just be, it's like me living in Wales now. You know, it's raining. Oh, it's just another day.
Yeah, that's why I really generally thought London equals tropical weather. Denim jacket.
You don't get out much, do you?
Tropical destination of London.
Yeah, literally, it is.
So I can probably say this as an American. So you know, you might lose some listenership or whatever over this. It's funny because a lot of people were talking about, oh, we got to go to this event, we got to watch this live. It's going to be the only coronation that we see in our lifetimes. You see how old he is? I mean,
yeah. I mean, it is really interesting because actually, for most of the vast majority of the population in the UK, so well around the world, obviously as well, was it 90% of them will never have seen a coronation before, and actually most of the people taking part, most people organising it, had never been to one before. So they were all basically reading books, you know, watching previous. I mean, the telly wasn't brilliant back then either, and all that sort of stuff. And so they were basically making it up as they went along, which was fab.
And apparently, it was toned down. Like he wanted a small.
Yes.
Small.
And it took. Yeah, it was an hour less. It's normally something like 4 or 5 hours, and it was only 3. So, yeah, and which I feel quite pleased about because I don't think I could have sat there for much longer.
Yeah.
Well, hey Barry, I want to circle back to something that you were saying earlier. So you have a new podcast. Do you want to mention that a little bit more? Because what is it called? It's called The Pulse, right?
It's called The Pulse, and the idea is it's trying to get behind working out how the magic happens within the CIHF. So I blatantly ripped off what you do with town halls with HFES, made it a bit. We were trying to make it a bit shorter, but weirdly, so the first episode went on a couple of weeks ago. So we're going to do it fortnightly. That's the idea, and it's just like what's happened in the last 2 weeks, what's happening in the next 2 weeks, and then sort of refresh that as we go. Nice and informal, nice and chatty, bit like what we do here. And just give people a bit of an insight into, you know, because you don't necessarily know what goes on at council or what does the president do, what does the honours committee do, you know, that sort of thing, and just give a bit more insight, particularly for key people who potentially want to, you know, put themselves forward for roles. Gives them a bit of an idea of what's going on and that sort of stuff, and like what the different SIG groups up to, special interest groups are up to. So Kate's going to get another job at fairly shortly. And so we would try and bring people in, and the idea was that it would be 5-10 minutes. You know, I was thinking very much along the human factors minute approach, but a bit longer, 5-10 minutes. Quite quick blast. So then the first episode goes out, and it's about 35 minutes. But actually, it was quite nice. It was conversational. And so that felt maybe about 15-20 minutes would be right. So we recorded the next episode yesterday, which will go live on Saturday. And it was very much of the, we did it, and then we're like, we are going to do it shorter, punchier, sharper. We're going to get there. 27 minutes later, and we're like, and we've shaved 4 minutes off it. Well done, which I only just realised earlier. But we'll get there. It'll be interesting.
I gotta say though, Barry, I'm not a huge fan of the name because I thought I had a much better name for it.
Oh, go on then.
Okay, I told you this in chat.
Yes, you didn't know what it was.
Barry's bold and brilliant banter breakdown broadcast on brainy behavior.
Yes, that's true.
Catchy.
Well, was it 6BS or something like that?
B9 for short is what you said.
Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't get it into the Apple title. That was the problem.
Okay.
So I had to go with something else.
We'll take out brief. So just call it Barry's bold and brilliant banter breakdown broadcast on brainy behavior. There you go. Just take out brief.
There we go. Yeah.
B8.
So you've thought about this.
Yes.
I obviously came up with a very uncommon podcast title called The Pulse because nobody else calls their organizational podcast The Pulse. I mean, there's not millions of them on Apple the Apple charts at all.
Doesn't exist at all.
No, completely unique. So
Mhm.
yeah, he lies a lot.
Oh,
But
I'm shocked. You need to get it on Spotify, though, please.
it should be on Spotify now, I think.
It was earlier in the week.
Okay, well, in that case, it's still submitting. In fact, I can probably check. It has been submitted to Spotify. Sometimes it can be a bit um, not bit precise or bit very thorough in their checking,
Yeah.
which is me being very polite for slow. I need to make that big. Oh, come on, Barry.
All right. Hey, really quick, just as we're in the pre-show here, if any of our patrons, lab members, want to chime in, we do have a link to the dial-in in our show notes, which you should all have access to. Love to hear what your thoughts on tonight's story, which is surviving deep space missions. That's what we're calling it, but basically trying to replicate Earth-like conditions in these deep space environments. So it'll be a fun chat tonight, I think. If you want to call in and leave us a voicemail, you can do that too. Just scan the little QR code there on the screen. You can do that. I'm trying to think of what else we usually go over here in the pre-show, but I think this should take care of a lot of it. So again, if you are a Patreon member, you should have access to the show notes, which have access to a link that you can get onto. If you want to talk with us live here in the pre-show, we got about 15 minutes, so jump on. Love to hear your thoughts. Heck, if you really want to, we can pull you on during the actual show. That might be a little tricky production-wise, but I'd be willing to try it out. So,
I'm gonna say, I got described the other day as being. They like my approach of just giving it a shot and seeing what happens. And I'm like, you've got no idea how much planning I do for this sort of stuff. But yeah, let's look like I'm really spontaneous. So
no, it truly would be. It would mess up my entire flow because we have this cadence and the show notes, and it's like, well, when do you bring somebody in? And I think like just from a production standpoint, what I would be doing is like talking with them in chat and saying, what's the point that you want to make? And then try to segue into it naturally in a discussion and say, and now we're going to bring on so-and-so who's on the line with us. And I think that would be, if we had a call screener, that would be the way that they would do it, is they would talk with them and say, what do you want to talk about? And then they would communicate with us via chat and say, okay, so-and-so is on the line. They want to talk about X, Y, and Z. And then we transition into that. That's how real productions do it.
I would say, don't we need like $1 million and a staff and 2 really good transatlantic studios and bulletproof hosting and all that sort of stuff?
Now we can do it here.
If anybody wants to, I don't know, buy a T-shirt from our Patreon or whatever, then maybe you can buy us that multi-billion-pound bulletproof studio with connections and all of our staff.
Does that say Nick needs a new car? Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
My car's first.
Well, I like
Oh my gosh.
I've got my. I can't call for my car anymore, have I? Because I didn't get the company Tesla, so but my car's still going strong. Have I told you I got a new car recently?
Yeah. Okay, Bear. Hang on. Vanessa on YouTube. Are you discussing call-ins for your podcast? Yes, we are, Vanessa. If you want to call in, we have been doing call-ins for the pre-show, post-show, but I was kind of talking about what happens if it happens during a live show, like the actual podcast episode. But if you want to try that, we're willing to play a game. Vanessa, one of our patrons, thank you so much for your support. Yeah, if you want to jump in, you're more than welcome to join us. Love to have more.
Be a regular party.
Yeah, it would be.
You have
4 of us.
t-shirts. Buy a t-shirt.
We do have t-shirts. I should get us a link to a t-shirt here. Hang on.
Oh God, here we
Do
go.
that in just a moment.
I love merch.
Oh well,
Vanessa says, "Now I'm good. Maybe post show. All right. Maybe we'll see you in the post show, Vanessa. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it."
To be fair, on my water bottle, I have the sticker.
Yay! How cool
What
is
is
that?
that?
And I stole it. So
That's what they're there for. We keep on coming back with them. It's like, do people not get the hint just to take some stickers? Anyway.
This is why, like at HFES, I pass those things out, man. Like it's like, here, take 10, pass them out to everybody you know. All right, this might do it. This guy is I don't know. Hang on, hold on. Here's what we'll do.
This is what happened when Nick gets an idea, and then we all have to just sit here.
No, this is what happens when Barry plants an idea in my head, and now I have to follow through with it because you put it out there into the world, Barry. That is what's happening here.
You're welcome, everyone.
So we'll just do this.
You guys do look very professional. You've got the mics and the headphones. I'm just here, like, no.
All right, this guy looks.
There's a phrase of "Ology and no idea" that is possibly applicable.
There you go. Here you go. Men's premium T-shirts. You can get to any of our other products from there, but this is a T-shirt you can buy. It's got a 4.5 star review out of 5,001 reviews.
I scanned it.
And it's very comfortable. I actually own one of these, so
You'd hope so.
Yeah, I should really order one. I haven't done that yet.
Oh man, yeah. No, they're nice. They're nice shirts, and it helps support the show. And all that stuff gets kicked back into the production. There's stickers on the website too. There's a bunch of stuff. I don't know. I'm not very great at promoting our merch store. So if you're interested, you can certainly do that.
I think maybe next year, because obviously next year we will get back on the hook for doing the Transatlantic Chef thing, because really this year didn't happen for one simple reason. But
why was that, Barry? Why was that? Can you tell me why?
I had stuff to do.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
Trying to get your people to talk to my people was just a nightmare because my
because your people were busy.
But yeah, next year when we do that, I'll have to buy a bunch of stock and just basically do the whole T-shirt cannon thing out to the stage.
Oh, ooh! You know what? I'm gonna write to HFES this year. Can we get a T-shirt cannon for our live stage show? Hopefully, they'll give us a stage and we can just sit there.
Do you reckon if we talk to them nicely, given that with fingers crossed, I'm coming over for HFES, we could do almost like a live on the stage? Could we do an episode like this, but on the stage with the cameras on the stage and people asking questions from the audience?
I would love that.
That would be brilliant fun. I think that'd be really cool. And if I can't make it there, I want to have my head on an iPad on a robot.
On a robot just rolling around. I love it.
Just roll around. That, I think, in fact, that sounds better whether I'm there or not. Even if I'm just sat outside on my phone as a robot goes around with my head on it. I think that needs to be done. But we should pitch that as an idea. I think that'd be fun.
Actually, Barry, I've been meaning to chat with you because I want to send off that proposal sooner than later. And maybe you and I can sync together on like a proposal for this year because I think last year was good, but I think this year we can make it better in a lot of ways.
Well, last year was learning, wasn't it?
It was.
It was a new experience.
And it worked. We did a 10-hour live stream from a hotel covering HFES, and it was wonderful. We got the keynote speaker in there. Like, we got how many interviews? Something like 10 interviews that day.
There was a lot. I just know that without putting too much into people's minds, maybe I obviously did it stuck in this cabin that I am in now, which normally when I stay in here for a couple of hours at a time, that's 10 hours solid. And it was quite warm as well all the way through. This place didn't smell as good as it could have done. I don't know whether that was a bit much for everybody, but
well, you should have smelled the booth.
I'd rather not.
No, our guests were very well groomed. They were to smell.
I'm not in the same room as you guys.
The whole reason we do it remotely.
Imagine the studio smells.
Yeah.
Comic-Con up in here.
Oh.
Go to Comic-Con, actually. I think it'd be really fun.
Comic-Con's fun.
Yeah.
We went to a smaller one of them. Was it early this year or late last year or something? For my son really wanted to go, and it was really, really good. He wanted to dress up. I was brilliant. Yeah, let's do it. That was when he bottled it kind of the last minute, and he didn't want because he thought he'd be embarrassed and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, you're not going to be embarrassed. There's people way older than you more dressed up in a more childish way than you ever will be, you will never, you will clearly be the most person in the room.
But is the embarrassment like on the quality of the costume? Because I know that's something that holds like a lot of people back, and it shouldn't. Like, people at cons are very supportive of other people cosplaying, even if it's like just putting on makeup or like throwing on an outfit that kind of looks like it. Like, even if you're trying, people are really, really supportive of others. And there's like this, you talk about the community within, human factors. I feel like a lot of the ways it's same for like these comic conventions where everyone's just really supportive. You don't find a whole lot of dicks out there. Like, it's just, it's nice.
I think his problem was he was 13 and a young 13 male, and therefore he was just terrified of doing it, which is like kind of fair enough now. Whereas now, I think it'd be a bit, a whole year later. But now you give me an idea for next year's EHF. Maybe we should push. Could we do some sort of collab between Comic-Con and EHF 2024, which means that everybody has to come dressed as a superhero?
Ooh, that'd be quite fun, actually. Cool. I'm trying to think who it would be.
But wouldn't you want to cosplay as, like, I don't know, like a PhD or something? Like, I don't
know. What? Sad.
I'm going to get in trouble if I keep my mouth opening like this. All right. I'm going to stop.
This is what you get to go like.
I used to, in fact, one of my early talks that I would do to students at some of the universities, I like to launch with a statement and let it sit. And so I would start with, "You are all superheroes."
Yeah.
Let that sink in, and then explain, but you are all potential superheroes, and then explain why human factors is a really good thing because it creates really great things, almost like having a superpower. I ran with that for a good 2 years.
Why'd you retire it?
Well, I go back and talk to the same people, and they're like, "Yeah, you said that last year."
Okay.
But no, I like to keep my material fresh. Speaking of which, I'm giving a keynote on next Wednesday in Iran. But I'm not going because clearly my security clearances wouldn't let me go to such a place. However, I've been invited to keynote to a occupational health and safety conference in the ergonomics section, and I'm kicking it off and keynoting it on Wednesday morning. So I'm quite excited about that. No idea what I'm going to say yet, but they asked for a title this morning, so I've given the title. I'm now just going to work out what I'm going to say with the rest of it.
Well, tell us a little bit more about that. I'm going to jump off just for a second, just to make sure the show goes off without a hitch. I'll be right back. You guys got this, right?
So when Nick runs away, that gets me slightly more concerned. Yeah, it's
you can see my background more, and I'm like, oh, I don't have a nice studio. I just work in the conservatory.
Well, he sort of does this because obviously I still have my 1202. All you can see is the S of it at the moment. In the background, because obviously I can't be bothered taking the logo on and off the wall. But yes,
can't that here.
Say again?
You can't rep that here.
Oh, you want to bet? To the show, I like to think we're just supportive of each other, and that works. As in, if you didn't let me talk about it, I'd find a way to do so. But no, what we are trying to build in the larger sphere of things is a community of HF podcasts, because we don't just want to be the only people talking about it. So when that Fran Ives has now launched All Systems Ergo, which is a fantastic name.
Yes, awesome.
I was like, clearly I wish I'd thought of that. I'm just too space oriented for my own liking. But when I heard the name of it, I was like, that's just brilliant fun. And so I've sort of reached out to her, and I'm going to interview her at some point about the podcast and the stuff that she does, because obviously what she's doing is focused at healthcare. Mm-hmm. But yeah, if we can, there's got to be a session where we get all of the podcast community in a room and do something, which is kind of hard when Nick's out there in the States. But say that we've now got more people over here, so.
Like, I always thought the US was like bigger human factors community, but it seems to
They are, so they're still bigger than us. So I think HFE has got around 3,000 members. We've got around 2,000. And so, but when you compare
Yeah.
the size, proportionally, as if you like, a la the GDP type measurement, yeah, clearly we win. But we have more chartered members because nobody else has them around the world. But,
that is awesome. I love that.
Well, it's really interesting because when you talk about chartered engineers, so actually different countries do have either chartered engineers or equivalents, but actually because the whole chartership is a royal assent, it's actually done by the charter body in the UK. So when you sort of talk around, you can get chartership in the UK, you can't get that anywhere else, and you talk the people in other countries go, "What's that then? Why do I care?" You're like, "Oh yeah, that's a fair comment." So you decided to come back then, Nick.
I'm back. I am back. We shall have no incidents on tonight's episode. Okay, look, here's the thing, everyone. This is probably TMI, but there's like an energy drink bladder trade-off that you need to make to be high energy on the show. I just wanted to make sure that trade-off wasn't going to cash in the middle of the episode.
That's fair.
That's fair. All right. That's good. Prior planning and preparation prevents literally.
Exactly. There you go. All right. Well, hey, we'll be right back after this, and we'll start the show. You guys ready?
Yay! Let's do this.
All right, let's do it.
Welcome to Human Factors Cast, your weekly podcast for human factors, psychology, and design.
Yes, hello, everybody. We are back. It's good to be back. This is episode 283. We're recording this episode live on May 18th, 2023. This is Human Factors Cast. I'm your host, Nick Roome. I'm joined today by Mr. Barry Kirby.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, well, and a new face here, Kate Preston. Welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on. So, Barry, you've invited Kate to be on the show with us today. Super excited to have you here, Kate. We're looking forward to your thoughts and opinions on today's show. We have a great show for you all tonight. First, we're going to be talking about deep space missions and what it means to survive on these missions. Is it necessary to recreate exact Earth-like conditions or not? And then we'll answer some questions from the community, including human factors in different countries, switching from senior UX researcher to human factors, and any tips for first in-person conferences, especially relevant since EHF was a couple weeks ago. But first, some programming notes for you all. Yes, we are back. We are back, and it is great to be back. I know before we had left, Heidi and I had sat here and told you that if everything were to go well, that Safe and Effective would be out soon. We hit some production hiccups, and then I left on a 2-week vacation, so it's coming out this week. I promise it's coming out this week. If you're listening now, it's likely out already. Hopefully, it's going out on Friday. That's our goal. And so listen for it there. It's the first episode. It's a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to you all to hear that. Also, in our feed while we were gone, we dropped a little preview for you all of a roundtable that Barry and I had with Frank. And that is a new series that we are starting over on Patreon. In fact, if you want to get in on that action, there is a tier where you can basically subscribe and be on your own podcast episode with Barry and myself. And we'll sit down and talk about whatever topic you want, human factors related or not. Doesn't matter. We'll sit there. We'll be engaged. We'll do our homework and we'll sit there and talk with you. And if you want to find out what that's like, just go and listen to that little 10-second sample. If you want to listen to the whole thing, $1 gets you in the door at Patreon. Other than that, Barry, it's been a minute. What's been going on over at 1202?
So at 1202, I've actually got a new episode up, which is obviously a shocker at the moment. But no, I've recently interviewed CEO of CIHF, Ben Peachy. I keep on saying he's the new CEO. He's not really. He's been in post about 8 months, but for a good couple of years, he's still going to be the new guy. But what's been really interesting is a really good chat around his background, what's his drivers behind the type of jobs that he's done before, and why that led him to being the CEO of the CIHF, and then also talking about his ambitions and insights about what he thinks he's going to bring to the Institute and where he wants to take it. So that was a really, really good chat. And even though I've been speaking to Ben quite a lot, I learned a lot of new stuff about it. So that's live now. And thoroughly well worth a listen.
Well, I'm excited. I'm still catching up because being out, I couldn't listen to podcasts all that much. Anyway, we know why you're all here. You're here for the news. So let's get into it. That's right. This is the part of the show all about human factors news. Barry, what is the story this week?
So the story this week is about deep space missions must recreate exact Earth-like conditions to survive, scientists are arguing. So a new theory published in Frontiers in Astronomy and Space Science states to survive long deep space missions, environments must be modeled after that on Earth. They claim the theory known as pancosmorio, I think I got that right, meaning all word limit, is backed with an evolutionary context. The study stipulates that the first condition for living in space is gravity, since all human processes and development are based on Earth's gravitational pull. The theory takes a holistic approach to the problem of human survivability and requires a self-restoring natural ecosystem to back up technology, infrastructure, and society. Human bodies and natural ecosystems need Earth-like conditions to sustain life. The study divides into efficiency and society. Environmental and societal networks will need to be created to sustain human life, including generating oxygen and to recycling waste. The theory's crux is that humanity's conditions that allow its growth and evolution must be modeled to survive in deep space. Creating Earth-like conditions in space will be a massive task, but this new theory offers a potential roadmap for the future. So, Kate, are you ready to take on a mini Earth with you wherever you go when you start exploring space?
Me starting exploring space. Well, I don't know. I thought firstly, well, of course you would want a mini Earth. Like, we all know we need gravity, we all know we need oxygen, and that's what that article and actually the paper focuses mostly on. But I was kind of more interested in the kind of the tiny little sentence that you spoke about was like society and like that sort of more kind of human things that we need to kind of be human and live. And this is stuff like, do we need a double bed? Do we need plants? I do. I need plants. Do we need a kind of a group of people that we can talk to, but several groups of people because you get sick of one group after a little while? And do you need to be able to watch the latest murder documentary on Netflix? And I think that's the sort of stuff that you need to focus on in these sort of deep space missions, because in the end, and you've seen the movies, everybody ends up hating each other. Like, and that's often the cause of missions to fail. And obviously it's a movie, but you do hear about cabin fever and stuff. And how do we avoid that level? That's what I'm interested in rather than the kind of, you need gravity and stuff like that. But I did also, because it is a father-daughter collaboration, which I thought was really fun. And I did think, how could I collab with my dad? But I don't think his work on brownfield land would work with human factors. But anyway, I did ask him what he thought because he likes these sort of things as well. And he said he doesn't like the word exact that they use in the article and in the paper, that we are humans and we can adapt to certain situations, and gave the example of, people take quite a lot of drugs sometimes and we do adapt to that eventually and we can recover from it in the end. And I just think there's more to it than just gravity and oxygen that people need to stop focusing on. But Nick, what do you think?
No, I'm right there with you. I think for me, it was yes, but no. It was kind of my first initial thought. Yes, we do need to recreate gravity and oxygen, and you're right. But the social aspect, again, like you said, Kate, is kind of where I'm interested in. I don't think we necessarily evolve if we mold our surroundings to our will, right? You can argue that that's what we're doing right now, is that we're kind of making we can bulldoze an entire mountain and put up a city there, right? Although we tend to work around the environmental have in our own environment. And I feel like you're kind of looking at the same thing. Survive based on things that you have accessible to you. And is it necessary to recreate everything exactly? I don't think so. There are some natural things that we as a species need to overcome, and spacefaring could be one of those things. I think it is ultimately if we become a spacefaring species, and then we're going to need to be adaptable to space and deep space flight and living on other gravitational, deltas from our home planet of Earth. And so I think the more things that we control, the better in this type of situation. But I don't necessarily think that we do everything like here on Earth. And this is kind of getting along with the societal changes. I think it gives us a good chance to start over with some things that are, kind of messed up over here on on Earth, especially with those societal issues. Like, why not bring those lessons learned over into a new colony? I don't know, Barry. What are you thinking?
So I guess we sort of assuming that the world is as we have it is the right sort of place for us to it's the place where we have to be because we literally are nowhere else. We can't get off the rock, but there is plenty of places on the world that is already hostile to us. So if you go and try and live on one of the poles, it's too cold. If you go and try and be in one of the go and live in the desert, then that doesn't work either. But fundamentally, yes, I get it. In the short term, I get what they're talking about. If we need to go and survive tomorrow, next week, next month, whatever, then we need to recreate the elements of it. We've already seen this in spaceflight already. As soon as you leave the atmosphere, you start to get bone degradation, etc., etc. So there is short-term fixes that we need to put in place. But what about the role of evolution? And I think all three of us have kind of alluded to this, is as we go through life, people will adapt to living on whatever that be it a spacecraft, be it another planet, and we will evolve there. So will we evolve to become less reliant on gravity? I can't have been the only person that immediately thought of which systems are we talking about when dependent on gravity. We probably all thought of the same one straight away. But that will presumably change. But then if we do get reliant on living on, like say, with different levels of gravity and things like that, does that mean that once you're gone, you can't come back? How do you, if you're used to living in a low gravity environment, could you come back to Earth at all, or are you just gone? Kate, you mentioned about like sort of books and films and stuff. There's two here that really, I think, almost epitomize the problem, because I'm a big fan of The Martian, the book and the film, and that sort of they are really good, and that sort of highlights the scientific, the professional voyager, shall we say? So the people who go and they know how to use airlocks, they know how to make sure they do the suit up, and they're not going to go and try.
I think we may have lost Barry. What a rare loss. So Kate, when Barry comes back, we will let him finish his thoughts. But for now, there's Barry. So you're back. Let's go ahead and finish your thoughts.
Yeah, we're all having trouble tonight, aren't we?
Yeah.
So the I don't know have I got to, but anyway, the second book was Artemis, and that is about living on the moon. And actually, that show that involves a level of, I call it crime.
Oh heck!
Oh, this will be fun.
This is gonna be fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Lots of editing. Okay, we'll let him finish his thought on Artemis. It's essentially crime. Go ahead, Barry. You were dropping out again.
Noise. Anyway.
Oh gosh.
Okay.
No.
There he goes, and here he comes back, and we'll flip him. Okay, go.
Oh, this is terrible. Anyway, Artemis, really good book, and that's all about on how people live outside of the society and the and not strict protocols. So people trying to do their own thing, and it basically shows how people will hijack the situation, not work within the processes that we have. So how will live enough world work with crime? So fundamentally, when will space? That was a long way around saying, and a lot of interruptions of saying, when will space exploration be robust enough to survive all that mankind does, and not just trained professionals? That was a journey, wasn't
it? Yeah, that was.
I immediately thought. Sorry, I was thinking of the Passenger. I don't know if you've seen it,
yes.
But Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, and how that system goes wrong completely, and he wakes up and then he decides, I'm sorry, spoilers, and he then decides to wake up someone else, and then they end up growing up a whole garden. And that's just a case of where the system went wrong, but no one had any kind of things in place to fix that system if it did. They couldn't even get into the crew. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many places that we can go with this. To me, the interesting bits are the society and the evolution pieces, because I think we are all kind of going along those lines. So if you want, we can continue those threads, unless either of you have a specific area that you wanted to talk about first.
No, I think, well, for me, I'm happy to crack on. But Kate, have you got anything that you want to
Well,
throw in?
mine, I just think of the paper. I don't know if you guys looked at what they wrote.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay, yeah. Well, I went and looked at the original paper that this article is based on, because I was like, is it going to be a nice read? It wasn't. It was very confusing, and it was the research behind it I found difficult. It almost felt like it came from their own heads. I was expecting simulations and stuff.
Right.
Like, we've done simulations and we've seen that people really do need gravity. I mean, based on simulations, but it was literally them bringing together theories and almost kind of coming up with a new theory. I know that's how these things start, but I don't know.
Well, let's talk about the methodology. Like, how could we potentially improve this in the future? Because I think that's a great point, right? The papers that are often sort of more flowery or idea pie in the sky are harder to talk about from a scientific perspective, because it's not necessarily proving or disproving anything. They're ideas that you're documenting. And so, for, like you said, Kate, there's a need to sort of test these assumptions, this hypothesis that we need to recreate an Earth-like scenario. And how do you test that without, I don't know, like the testing of this theory would be making Mars like Earth in as many ways as that you can, with like a a square block. You have the suburbs over here and you have the stores over here. You're just wearing spacesuits. Or if you can, make their remake the oxygen on Mars. I forget what that's called, but I think without doing that, you don't have a proper one-to-one. And then if you want to generalize it, you could think about what it is on Earth. Is there a performance difference in the people, the astronauts that go out on this mission to survive? And maybe that is their true goal, is just survival. Like, live in this environment for 2 years, right? Maybe it's a 2-year study. You throw people out in an environment. What are the deficits that they need? Maybe shorter term to begin with, but then that might be a good way to build a case for, hey, they need a convenience store here, because that's what, and then the convenience store comes, and then you say, okay, well, the convenience store needs a supply. And then, well, where do they get the supply from? Well, you need people with jobs. And then, so it just creates its own economy there. And then there are, like I was mentioning earlier, there are things that we do here on Earth that we could optimize when we go out and say, this is how it's done on Earth. But what if the production of supplies was automated there? What if we don't need necessarily somebody to work a factory to produce these things? Maybe a supervisor to make sure that the products that are being built or that are being created are suitable for human consumption. Something I'm thinking like a farm. You have, a farmer that watches automated vehicles dig up the carrots and, whatever it is that they're doing, and then sends that off to the store. What if that's all automated and you just have somebody in a supervisory role, and it's one farm that's feeding an entire colony, right? So there are ways in which I think this dramatically changes from just a thought experiment to putting this in a real world scenario. I don't know. What are your all thoughts? What are some other things that we could do to perhaps try this out?
Well, I mean, I think Kate nailed it earlier with the simulation. Given what we're doing at the moment, and given to some people, we could all just be a product of a massive simulation anyway. But that's a different topic for a different day. But the idea that we can test out their ideas by just simulating it. There's loads of ability to do this now, but it goes back to, and we've kind of said this, I guess, with other papers like this in the past. So what? What's the point? What we kind of it's almost like, oh well, duh. Of course we need something that creates oxygen that we can breathe, and we've got gravity that we can do. But actually, by trying to recreate Earth in its entirety, are we just missing opportunities? like the ones you mentioned, in terms of if we recreate like society exactly the way it is now, we lose an opportunity to find out different ways that it could function. We could maybe have, if we find out that we can go and sit on other planets and survive, we could maybe have a planet with no money, and we just learn to all get along and do nice things for each other, and have daisies in our hair and that sort of thing. I like daisies in my hair. But so we can actually test out, or you can almost test out, would communism work? Would different methods of looking after people work in different things? And you can say, actually, no, Planet D's got it. Yeah, that's the right balance. It could be an opportunity to fix society if you think it's gone wrong. But we also, as a species, we're explorers. We like trying new things. We like trying to go and do new things. So given if we try and recreate everything exactly as we got it on Earth, we could be losing an opportunity. When I pushed this out on social media, that we were going to be talking about this, an interesting point came up around music. And Mark, friend of the show, mentioned he just came up and said, just music will be important. So I was like, well, why would it be important? What is it about it that makes you think that it's important? And it was in that cultural bit, it's the bit that could tie people together. It's the bit that could either link plans together or actually separate some of their differences out. He also highlighted that they could actually just separate the mathematician from the musician, and musicians would generally get on better with everybody else. But it was really interesting. So I'm kind of back to the so what. What is the point?
Let's throw it to Kate. What is the point, Kate?
What's the point? Oh, probably just making sure that we screw up this Earth and we have somewhere else to go. If I'm honest, I feel like that's the point of all these deep space missions and all the scary films that we all watched when we were younger about how we have to. I'm gonna be an absolute weirdo here, but like Geostorm and stuff like that. All these 2012, my favorite film ever. They all showed the world being destroyed, and we're not far off that. And we do need to maybe start thinking about this. And maybe I always think you could do simulations in deserts, build a bubble. I don't know, that's really far-fetched, but you could generally build a bubble in the desert and almost make it like a mini Earth and see what people need. And you could have that kind of feedback loop of, right, we're in here and we do need Netflix. Like, we actually, as a society, have come together and decided we really do need access to Netflix. And then people will know for future that we will need some sort of Netflix specifically, but videos and stuff, or we need music. We do need this, and you could have that almost. You'd have to have really good volunteers who are quite happy to live in a small bubble, but you do get those people. But all I can think of is the fact that if you started again somewhere else, you could actually have a healthcare system that actually links together. That's all I can think of is the fact that you have things that link and actually talk to each other. Oh, that'd be fantastic. But yeah, I think the so what is basically like we do probably need to start thinking about this.
I think you do raise an interesting point there about things linking together. I mean, what happens if we actually started a world where we all speak the same language, and so all the language barriers disappear? So you set the universal language, be it English, or it could be Chinese, or whatever it is, but everybody speaks the same language. So you immediately break down a lot of the cultural differences and a lot of the communication differences. Would that make the world a happier place? But I guess to swing it to some actual human fantasy stuff, in terms of thing, I guess the way some application stuff that is quite interesting right now we've talked about climate ergonomics in the past. One of the things that came up during some of that work is that if we see climate change go the way that it's going, if we can't halt the 2 degrees, etc., then we are going to have to change the way we live in order just to keep living here, We're going to have to be able to deal with hotter and colder climates. We're going to have to be able to deal with greater rainfall, etc., which is stuff that we can talk about and say, oh yeah, hotter summers, great, sunburn, brilliant. But actually, we are going to have to learn to live in a different way, particularly if you're already living in one of the more extreme areas. So if you're living somewhere that is already hot, it's going to get hotter. If you live next to Kate, where it rains all the time in Scotland, it's going to get wetter, and things like this. So we are going to have to learn to adapt anyway. So this, I guess, putting the positive piece on this is looking at that. So what is, if we take this as the hypothesis that yes, we are going to have to recreate this type of stuff, there is actually value in doing it now on Earth anyway, because we're going to have to do it even just to stay here. Nick, what do you think?
No, I think that's right. I think there's I want to circle back to some of Kate's comments about like making the perfect healthcare system that links together, and your comment about speaking the same language. There's a lot to be said about starting from scratch, and I think in a lot of ways this is our wishes as a society to like bulldoze and start over from scratch, because we have learned so many lessons, and a lot of them include sort of these solutions that are sort of unifying, right? That is kind of the theme that both of you brought up, is this unification of language, unification of a healthcare system, unification of sort of the system by which we govern, right? That could be, you can imagine a planet with a worldwide government that is either democratic or communist or socialist, or however you want to establish it, Barry, like you were saying. And just the fact that it's a worldwide thing, a planet-wide thing, rather than a country, barriers by country, like we have here on Earth, would we then thrive and survive as a species, not as Americans or any other nation on Earth, because Americans are the most important, right? I'm being facetious here, but like, would we as a human race be better off if we could start from scratch and we take these lessons learned? And I think there's a lot of human factors applications here, because if you think about it, who's going to be involved in the process early on to make sure that these systems, these processes, these, hell, even cities and city planning, there's so many lessons that we have learned from city planning. If you can imagine trying to terraform Mars or something along those lines, colonize Mars, what if you could just, we've mapped out the entire surface. What if you could pick a place on there that's the most habitable, that has the most wide open space, and you just have a clear canvas to build a city on top of? I think that would go a long way for the prosperity of us as a society, because then we can seriously look at it and say, almost Barry, like the story that we talked about earlier this year, which was the wall that is it called the wall? It's
Noom.
Noom. Yeah, Noom's or Neom. Yeah, they've created this kind of entire city that's the line. That's what it's called. An entire city that's contained within this like long skyscraper. And I think we can apply some of those same principles to colonizing another planet, and designing these spaces to be like, you put the healthcare stuff together, but also you put many of them distributed, so that way you get access within a couple minutes, no matter where you're living. Or, a fire station that's, a perfect equal distant away from wherever a fire could break out. These types of things that you can plan for and design for, and include the people who are going to be doing these things in the process. And that's where human factors comes in. A lot of it would be, how can we, what are the lessons learned that we've learned from our process here? You talk to us, we synthesize that and say, hey, it'd be better on this planet if we did it this way. So I think there's a lot of really interesting things from a human factors perspective that we could talk about. And I think this goes for society as well, too. I'm talking about structural changes here, but imagine society. Like, do you just source the people who want to live in a socialist environment and put them there? Because that would be their sort of utopia, right? The people who want to live there are the people who are identifying with wanting to be socialist on that planet. Or do you do the opposite, and everyone's kind of out for their own? It's like, how do you pick and choose? And does it make sense to do that? Is that truly human culture? Human culture, not any country or regional culture. I'm talking like, is that human culture to divide us in that way, or do we need to find a way to make everybody happy? I don't know. These are some questions that I am just throwing out there.
Well, it's when you start reflecting on what does it mean to be human and what is human nature, because this is, whenever we're doing trials or anything like that, that's what makes our work exciting. Because yes, you can sort of say yes, it should work like this, but you never know quite what you're going to throw up, which is good fun. And so when you look at things like that, what does it mean to be human? If you grab everyone together who thinks all the same way, does it just then get boring? And actually part of the fun, or at least the zest for life is dealing with adversity, and that adversity is of our own making in many ways. But I think to highlight some of the other bits around the technologies, using this as a push for improving production, because again, in the line, they are looking at how do they produce on multiple floors, reducing waste, keeping heat well within what it's doing, and looking at how they use water and et cetera, et cetera. So it's obviously a really strong push for how do I generate crops and to provide the nutrition that you need with the minimal waste of resources. Learning how to do that here, because of the potential of going and having to recreate that somewhere else, will obviously benefit us anyway, especially as we've talked so much about automation and AI. If we are going to have a world here that actually the amount of work overall is not there, and that whole meaning of, if you're a productive member of society, you're a working person who works 5 days a week and has your weekends off and the occasional holiday, that is all going to change. That is all radically going to change over the next few years. And actually some of this stuff, if we get people more focused on what they're good at and actually inquisitive and developing stuff, that could be better for us as a society as a whole. But I think, going back to your point, Nick, what always comes up in society, no matter what, no matter how good everybody is, there's always somebody who either wants to do something against the needs of, basically selfish, they want to do something all for themselves, or they just deliberately want to mix things up and undercut people, because that's the way, that is human nature. So how is that good, or is that bad, or is that it just is?
That's what I was thinking is, if you had this kind of universal language, or, this group of people who are really similar, how long will it take for them to divide? Like, it might just be that we're all human and we like to be in groups, and we can't be in a large group, and we can't agree with everybody, so we do divide. And I think it would be an interesting experiment to put everybody in and have them all speak the same language, and then see how long it takes for their own languages to kind of come out. And I don't know. That's the thing. It's all very hypothetical. And I do think there is a case for kind of starting again, and I would love that, especially within healthcare. And I will get off my soapbox about that eventually. But I don't know. I feel like we'd have to make sure you don't miss out on some of the nice things that we have. So I'm thinking, and I was in the States last year in Arizona, and the grid system there of, you drive down a road and it takes forever and you can't walk it. I prefer here where I can walk and, it's nice and it's country. And I think you'd have to make sure you considered that stuff, and that's kind of talking to the user to make sure that they are taking into consideration, oh, do you want a kind of old building there? Do you want to park here? Do you want to be within walking distance of a nice cafe? Whereas some other places you don't get that. And I would worry that you would miss out on all those sort of things if you didn't, I don't know what I'm trying to say, didn't let it just happen. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you're arguing that planning all that stuff ahead of time would not necessarily allow for that, I guess that cultural flair, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the counter argument, right? Is that this line that Barry and I keep bringing up is kind of doing exactly that. They're building out this gigantic skyscraper that's got everything that you might need within walking distance or traveling distance. You just take an elevator up to X floor and boom, there's a coffee shop for you. Or you can go, down to floor 3 and there's a school for you. you know? And so it's like,
Yeah.
everything that you need is right within your vicinity, and maybe there's a couple options that you can go to because you're between two different things. And if you want to travel, you can hop on the train and go, you know, a little bit further. But their whole goal was to make those things walkable. And I think there's a nice, I guess, middle ground where you can say this space is reserved for this type of commercial thing, right? Like a coffee shop, or you know, a social gathering place, or a common working space, or whatever it is that you want to define. And you just basically provide these little placeholders that people can come up and put up shop there and provide their own flair to it. But at least that way, you're still designing this area, right? You mentioned Arizona. I'm sorry you went to Arizona, but the thing with Arizona is that you're right. It is a grid system, and a lot of people really like that system here in the States because it's very easy to navigate. You go over X blocks, and then you go up X blocks, and then you go over X blocks, and then you're at your destination. Now, I understand that it's not walkable, and you know, we've actually done another episode on the show about walkability and how it actually, you know, it affects people differently depending on your socioeconomic status, and it's unfair in a lot of ways. But if you design a space to be walkable, or, you know, I'm thinking movable sidewalks, or like some other public transportation systems, that's another thing that you could really, really work on another planet, is refactor the transportation system and build it in from the get-go. You have high-speed rail that goes across the whole planet. You know, you have you know, buses and trains that go completely every which route you need, or might need. And then you have other ways of getting around. And I think all that is you can certainly do those things, but I don't know. I think the cultural aspect of, you know, what it means to be human, and I think that's where this happy medium needs to exist, of creating these spaces for people to make their own thing of their local community. And yeah, how long would it be before we started seeing those regional dialects in that unified language? Before we started seeing offshoots of that language into separate languages? And how long would then it be before that unified society then starts to divide again? And would those divisions be minor but perceived as larger differences? Like us as humans, our differences are very like if you were a spacefaring species and you came to the to Earth and saw the differences that we had, they'd be like, oh really, that's so petty, why would you even, you know? So I mean, like, think about that, right? We all kind of want the best for everybody, and we're all kind of going about it in different ways. um Politics aside, there's I mean, like I think that's truly what everybody wants, is the best for everybody. We just have different thoughts and opinions on it. And if you put everybody in the same environment and with a similar belief, that's where I'm kind of coming at here, is like, if you put all socialists on a planet, would then the differences become in how you do socialism versus you know, anything else? So that's where I'm coming at, is how do you build these, and does it make sense to do that, or does it make sense to mix? And what is human?
I mean, I guess the point on language is interesting, because actually we do it already. If you go, you know, you look around the UK and you have different dialects, you have different words that mean different things. We have intergenerational differences. I don't have a clue what I have to say what my kids are saying, and they have to clue me into, you know, define the words, the terminology that they're using, to make that to allow me to key into it. Similarly in the States, you know, you look at the difference between the UK and US. We apparently speak a common language, but we have now very different terms for the same thing, just because of, you know, the size of the ocean between us. So I think that will happen, but we would still be coming from a common core. Fundamentally, we can make ourselves understood, which is not necessarily the same as having completely different languages. I think it's interesting. I think that this whole piece is, having started off by saying, well, duh, it's obvious. We could have easily gone down the whole physical route around how does bodily function work? How do we make sure that's all there? But clearly, all three of us have easily found more interesting the societal, the human behavior, the culture, them whole impacts. And I think that is absolutely right, because I think when we see society writ large, the society is all about almost celebrating differences as much as the things are the same. And therefore, how do we allow for that if you're going to build a new world? Because you're right, if you have a mapped out city in the UK, we've got Milton Keynes, that's built on a grid system. And last time I was bowled over by the amount of concrete, and I didn't know where I was. But it's interesting, if you provide too much order, too much given their provision. So if you had your high speed, where is the enthusiasm, motivation to do it better, to do it differently, to be stand out? I mean, we're doing some home renovation work, and we part of the criteria that when we're looking at stuff is saying, actually, somebody else has got that, we'll want something similar because that clearly works. We've seen them do it, but actually somebody else's, nobody's done this before, so we want to do that because we want to be different. So how do we allow for that if we architect society too much? I don't think we can do it.
Yeah. Let's go around, do one more kind of final thoughts here. Kate, your final thoughts on the article. What do you think?
I think there needs to be more done on this kind of people side of it rather than always, because the article does focus on gravity, and I get it. I do. It's important. We do need gravity if we're going to do anything, if I'm honest. I mean, we might not, but like to start off, we certainly will. But I do think there needs to be more of a conversation about what people would need in terms of themselves. I say it again, I would really need a plant, like I would need a garden. I would need something to do like that. I'd need wool to crochet, that level I think is important. And I know it comes after the gravity, and we're very far off all this. I mean, Starship is only just tested, and that's like the first one that might actually go to Mars with people. I just think that it's important we do focus on that. But yeah, I'll hand over.
Yeah, very final thoughts.
Yeah, I think actually where this took me, and I didn't expect to go there, is how this actually reflects what we do in terms of human factors and when we're testing on users. If you get a big enough sample of people, you will see all sorts of behaviors and things happening in that group that you necessarily weren't expecting, because humans are different, because we have variety even within the same small microcosm of a user testing group. So yes, I think there are things that bring us together, the need for gravity, etc., but there's also a lot that divides us, and we need to possibly celebrate that as well, and as well as research it. Nick, what about you? How do you like to finish?
Yeah. For me, there's a couple things that I want to tick off my list before we I always call this opening up the can of worms before we leave, but I think we've talked a lot about planets and, sort of terraforming planets and what does it mean to set up a society on a planet, but deep space could also mean on a space station. Mm-hmm. What does it mean to have a space station with artificial gravity and oxygen, recycled oxygen, all that stuff? I think the other point that I want to make, or at least open up, is we've been talking a lot about this as changes from today's society. How would it change from what we're used to? But what about the societies that grow up in these environments? What do they think about it as natives to these environments that maybe are fixed, for a lack of a better term? And maybe those are the people who are thinking about things in different ways. This is the way it's always been to me because it's been this way since I was born. But how can this system be improved? And I don't know if there's, I think there would always be a drive for human innovation. That's just my inkling, but those are some things that I would like to open up as a can of worms. And as we transition, I just want to thank you all of our patrons this week for selecting our topic. And thank you to our friends over at Gizmodo for our news story this week. If you want to follow along, we do post the links to all our original articles on our weekly roundups in our blog. You can also join us on Discord for more discussion on these stories and much more. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back to see what's going on in the human factors community right after this. Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.
Yes, huge thank you, as always, to our patrons. We especially want to thank our Human Factors Cast All Access patrons like Michelle Tripp. Patrons like you truly keep the show running. And if you do want to, I mentioned Roundtable earlier, if you want to do that, become a Human Factors Cast VIP and you host your own Roundtable. All right, we've been doing these for a couple weeks now, these little dumb commercial reads. And tonight we're going to be talking about our social media accounts, shorts, bite-sized content. It's been a minute since we've done that, and we're getting back to it because we're back, baby. But here's the dumb commercial. Hey there, podcast pals. Do you know we have a social media presence that's hotter than a jalapeno pepper in the middle of summer? That's right. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for memes, behind-the-scenes shenanigans, and an unhealthy amount of cat videos. No promises on that, although we did have a cat-themed announcement earlier this year. But wait, there's more. We know you're busy bees, so we got shorts. No, not the tight, uncomfortable pants. We're talking about the bite-sized pieces of content, perfect for when you don't have time to listen to the full show. Think of it as a little appetizer before the main course of our sultry, wonderful voices. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest of the world of human factors, slap that follow button, strap onto the ride of your life. It's going to be a wild one, folks. Okay, maybe not that wild, but you get the point. Follow us. Check out our shorts. They'll leave you wanting more. Now back to the show. All right. Well, with that was a fun one. I like it when it actually comes back with good stuff. Because sometimes
I always feel slightly dirty after you've read them.
Yeah.
Do you feel? Oh, okay. This is the part of the show where we make Barry feel really dirty. All right. Why don't we get into the next part of the show?
It came from.
That's right. This is It Came From. This is where we search all over the internet to bring you topics the community is talking about. So if you find these answers helpful, useful, or if they make you uncomfortable, just give us a like wherever you're watching or listening to help other people find this content. All right, we have 3 up tonight. This first one here is from Sure Edamame 9180 on the Human Factors subreddit, Human Factors in Different Countries. The question is, hi, I'm considering studying human factors and ergonomics in the UK, but may want to move to the US in the future. Will the knowledge I gain from studying in the UK be transferable to a job in the US? Thanks. I wonder why I picked this one for this week's show. Barry, what are your thoughts on this?
Yes, especially if you join the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors, the CIEHF, then you will be supported to become a chartered member once you've got your qualifications. And we do that by providing membership and a fantastic community engagement. Everything you learn, I mean, CIHF aside, everything you learn, almost no matter where you learn it is transferable. And whilst you might have some terminology nuances, off the top of my head, HFI in the UK is HSI in the US. The fundamentals all remain the same because we're all human, right? But the superior education you'll get here in the UK will help you shine through to be even better. Should you go to the US, you will stand apart. You will be proven to be that sort of better person. Kate, would you agree with that sort of assessment?
Yes, I would definitely agree. So I actually had a conversation with an embedded human factors practitioner who comes to our, and this is a kind of get in there, our AI in human factors and healthcare special interest group. And I was just wondering, I have a partner who's going to be a pilot, and I just wanted to check, if he gets a job in the US, will I be able to get a job? And she said, yes, all the skills are transferable. We really like people from the UK, and she really just said joining in on the communities, groups, Chartered Institute, society is key, because then you get that kind of community feel and that knowledge, and people can put you in contact with other people who may have job opportunities or may have people who know people with job opportunities and experience. I think always reach out to your community. That's where you get the most. Nick, what do you think as our resident American?
Oh, yeah. As the American in the room, I'm going to say the only thing that would give me pause about hiring someone from the UK is some of Barry's previous responses to this type of thing on the show. So he's basically on the show mentioned that UK is not being at the same level as the US. But I do want to caveat that, because I think, Barry, what you're talking about there is sort of the maturity within organizations in workspaces, and not necessarily skill levels of the people. And I'm absolutely right there with you. I think the skill transfer themselves is fine, but the only thing that would give me pause is I might vet just a little bit harder to see exactly what you did in that organization, because if it's not as mature in the UK, then can I be sure that you'd be able to adapt, or have the skill set, or really it wouldn't even come down to do you have the skill set or not. It's what pieces would we need to just sort of not fix, but teach, or sort of patch over here, right? That we're missing from an organization that was maybe less developed in the UK. But you have that here in the States too, so I don't think it's like a huge disadvantage. That'd be the only thing that gives me pause. You mentioned the Chartered Institute. I'm going to mention HFES. I think this is an international community, and so if you join it in another country, you should be able to see job postings. I see a lot of job postings on there based in the US. And so that might be a great opportunity to network with somebody, get involved with an international organization, and make those connections that you can then use to get over here. All right. With that, let's get into this next one here. This one is switching from senior UX researcher to human factors. This is by user Dr. Ace on the Human Factors subreddit. I'm a UX researcher thinking about switching to human factors. Anyone else made this move before and have decided, have any advice or resources to share? I have a master's degree in behavioral decision science from 2018. I'm based in London, looking to leave my current role in tech due to a lack of integrity around data and work on something more consequential. My concern is that there aren't many open positions for human factors engineers and the salary is less. Any suggestions for other job titles I should be searching for? Again, why did I ask this one on this show? Barry.
I do. If you're searching for human factors and not getting anything in the UK, then I find that quite interesting. Because there are hundreds of human factors jobs out here at the moment. I did a quick search just before conference as part of my opening speech, and there was over 500 roles available, of varying shapes, size, and descriptions all around the human factors piece. I think bringing their UX experience into a human factors role will actually broaden their viewpoint and the impact that they can bring. I think they will get greater satisfaction that way, but I'm more of a human factors practitioner, I guess, so I guess I would say that. I wonder, just the way that this is written and the way that it is, whether the issue is actually with the UX discipline or with their own specific employment at this moment in time, given what they talk about in terms of the way that data is dealt with. I do, our UX friends do have a different lens and a different use of data that I think you do appreciate from a human factors perspective, but I don't think it's inconsequential. I think it's different. It's something we've talked about quite a lot in the past. So I think there was a lens issue here, perhaps. But there are stacks of human factors jobs out there, as far as I'm aware. Kate, I think you probably say similar.
Yeah, I'd definitely say similar. And if I'm honest, guys, I totally thought UX was under the human factors umbrella until the conference. And when they were like, oh, we didn't collaborate with them in time. And I'm like, wait, aren't we just the same? So I really do think it's transferable. And I mean, I have lived in academia my whole career. I haven't left it yet. So that might just be my not knowledge of the kind of industry. But I do think there are, as Barry said, lots of jobs out there. And they have a pretty good salary. But again, PhD student here, so anything, it's a good salary. And if you want to look at other job titles, I had a look on LinkedIn specifically, and there was lots of different job titles. So I saw applied behavioral scientist. That was for Revolut, the card company, and that I looked at the job description, and that was very much kind of a human factors role. Safety engineer, which can be quite technical, I find sometimes, but sometimes not. Human factors specialist, as always, and human factors engineer. The list goes on in terms of different kind of job role names, and I do think there's a debate there from trying to make them a bit more universal, because it is a bit confusing right now, because you go out there and you're like, is that a safety engineer in terms of human factors, or is this a safety engineer in terms of like making sure a pipe goes to the right place? I don't know. So I think there is a debate there about making something more universal. But I don't know what you think, Nick.
No, I think you're right. I think the other, just as we're talking about job titles, the other one that I seem to see a lot is cognitive scientist. I think that one's also another one that, depending on the context and where you're working, could be a lot of human factors-y work. Now that one's a little bit more general. It could be truly a cognitive scientist, but I think you're doing a lot of the same work there as trying to figure out what the human's role in everything is. For me, this is an interesting question because it usually runs the other way, because the UX option is more lucrative in a lot of ways. And you traditionally see people go from human factors into UX. In fact, that was my pathway. And so I think from the UX perspective, going to human factors, it's an easy jump, first off, just because you're doing a lot of the same things. You're just applying it to a broader spectrum. From my perspective, Kate, you mentioned it was under the umbrella of human factors. I think it is. You're just kind of crawling up to the top of that umbrella, and now you can apply it to a million different things. Having a different skill set. I think the skill set is there. The motivation seems to be there for this person. Again, kind of picked this because of the UK based approach. Not quite sure of the state of human factors versus UX over there, but you've kind of given me a little bit of an idea there. Here in the States, it's definitely UX is more tech based, corporation based, where human factors seems to be more government, aerospace sector, like different sectors call it different things. A lot of the times the work can be very similar. So that's what I got for that one. We got one more tonight. This one is by Oat Milk Shark on the user experience subreddit. Tips for first in-person conference. As a first-time attendee of an in-person design conference, what are some tips someone with no prior experience attending such events? What do you have? Specifically, how does networking work? Do people bring business cards? Do attendees usually chat information informally and exchange contact information at the end of a conversation? How should I dress? Do I take notes during talks and workshops, after the talks and workshops? Should I just leave and mingle, or stick around, talk to the speakers? If I do talk to the speakers, what is the best approach? What should I avoid doing? This is a lot of questions, so we're going to answer every one. Barry, go.
I definitely recommend wearing clothes. That's a really good starting point.
Good dress code.
Though, if you don't, then you'd definitely be remembered if you're allowed in. In terms of all these questions, you're not alone. Certainly, if you go to your first conference, it can be as nervous for you as it is for anybody else. But there are other people there who are in exactly the same boat. And in fact, people who are going to conferences quite a lot still feel nervous about having such a bunch of people together. I actually made a big deal about saying it in my opening speech that at EHF 23 this year, that just because you're feeling nervous about talking to somebody doesn't necessarily mean that the person you're talking to is entirely confident. Everybody's really welcoming. And that is generally my thing with most conferences. Most people are going there to network and engage. So fundamentally, do what you feel comfortable with. If you feel comfortable going up to a random group of people and saying, "Hi, my name's Barry," and well, please take your own name. Don't say you call Barry, because that'd be really weird. But just go and introduce yourself. If you're happy doing that, then do that. But if not, go and listen. Go and stand next to a group perhaps that might include in your conversation. But do be you, fundamentally. Business cards useful. The people I've noticed post-pandemic, less people have business cards now, and so people are happy to pass on LinkedIn information, or maybe even have the tap applications where you just tap phones together and it passes your information across. There are different ways of engaging with that. So I'll let Kate crack on with some of the other questions if you want, Kate.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Networking gives me the fear still. I'm slightly socially shy, if I'm honest, and I have a very small social battery, so I do find drinking does help. But then you end up going a little bit too far and you do karaoke in front of everybody like I did the last conference. But if you're not an alcoholic like I am, and Scottish, so that doesn't help either, I do find that I normally just have to take a really deep breath and I'm like, right, just do it. No one cares. Just go and do it. It's a conference. Everybody's here to do it. I also have a habit of I mass add everybody on LinkedIn at the end. And I did that at my first Ergonomics and Human Factors conference in 2022, was I mass added everybody. And then what you do is after you've mass added everyone is you put up a picture of the conference and say, I had a great time. And then people remember you and they're like, oh yeah, that person was at the conference. And then they also remember that you sang drunk karaoke. But in terms of outfits, and I don't really know, but I normally go black trousers and woolly jumper. That seems to be my go-to. And Converse, because no one looks at your feet and comfort is key. I also will say that I am a big advocate for volunteering at conferences. I've done it for 2 years now, and it is fantastic because you really do get to be in people's faces, but in like a you're in charge kind of way. And people remember you as well. And I don't know, I just think that if you get the opportunity to volunteer at a conference that you wanted to go to, I actually do think it's better for your networking than going there and not knowing anybody. Because I now know everybody. I feel it was great this last one because I was like, oh, I know people. So yeah, I think volunteering, but also remember everybody is literally in the same boat. But I don't know what you think, Nick, if you've got anything else to add.
Yeah, I got 6 words. Shots, 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 shots. No, I think alcohol can certainly be a good a good way to lower those barriers to approach other people and talk to them. I will say there are going to be uncomfortable conversations or not uncomfortable, just unnatural interactions because it's not something that you're used to doing, or at least for me, going up and approaching somebody about a topic. But some of those interactions can be some of the most fruitful you have in your life. You never know, it might spawn a collaboration in the future. I think business cards are a good practice. Barry mentioned the tappable thing. So if you want to buy an NFC and just program it with your information on it, so you can just hold it up to somebody and say, here, tap here, and you're there. I think business cards are great because, at least for me, at the end of the day, I take all those business cards and I add them on LinkedIn and I add a personalized message that says, hey, I really enjoyed talking to you today about X, and that way they remember who I am and they have that personalized message. And then, a couple weeks later, you follow up with them about anything that you talked about that you might, have needed answers to. That helps put you back in their memory and say, oh yeah, no, I had a great conversation with them. That's also another awkward piece, is like reaching out to them digitally, because it's different than physically, and it's just like this, you gotta get over that hump. It's like this thing that you do a couple weeks later and just get in the practice of it. I think you bring up a great point, Kate, of posting about it on, after the fact, tag everybody. It was a pleasure to meet so and so, get as much exposure on it as you can. I think ultimately, when it comes to dress code, I do business casual, but I don't know, like I wore jeans and a button up during our podcast. I was behind the booth though, so I don't know, but I wore slacks to the formal events. There's that kind of thing. Workshops, yes, take notes before and after, all the time. Every time you think you might want something later, take a note. Everything that interests you, mingle after every single thing that interests you, because you never know, like I said, who's going to collaborate on those types of things. And then avoid the what should you avoid doing? Just follow standard human protocol, and you'll be fine in a lot of cases. There are not very many bad actors or just jerky people in this profession, at least. And you will certainly know who those people are if you talk to them. And if you have, then to stay away from them. So that's the good news. All right, let's get into this last part of the show that needs no introduction. It's just one more thing. It's where we talk about one more thing. Kate, what is your one more thing this week?
Okay, so I went a bit random here. So I've talked about plants quite a lot. So I have a garden. I have planted vegetables, and I'm hoping that I'll have a good selection of runner beans, maybe some pumpkins for Halloween. And it's just a top tip for everybody, because I live in Scotland, as I've said a couple of times, and it's really, really damp all the time. It rains all the time. And I get really bad slugs. Like, they eat everything. So this is what I do to get rid of them. And this is so random. I'm so sorry. Pour beer in a kind of bottom of a milk bottle or something and put it in the ground, and the slugs go for it, and then there's no slug problem. I don't have a slug problem anymore. So that's my one more thing. And, I would be taking the beer for the slugs to any new planet or deep space mission.
Barry, what about you?
For me, I want to highlight a couple of TV episodes. So I really recently got into Chicago Med, which is obviously random. It's just come over to the UK from obviously from the States. But when you go to, quite specifically, Series 8, Episodes 9 and 10, they bring in a concept of the new operating theatre, or the operating theatre 2.0, which involves AI, robotics, and holographic imaging, and all this different type of stuff. Now, given what Kate and I have spoken about in the past, because Kate is the co-chair, of the AI and Digital Health Group in this IHF, and this is sort of stuff that we've spoken about in the past. Sitting there going, seeing it on telly being sort of implemented, and you're just looking at it going, there's prompting, and there's all this sort of stuff where the AI is telling the surgeon that he's doing it wrong, and you're like going, wow, there's so many. Actually, it's quite cool, but you'd fix so much of this. I know it's only a TV show, and you shouldn't get too excited about it and take it with a pinch of salt. But anybody who's interested in human factors in health, and particularly the implementation of AI and digital, needs to go and watch them, at least them 2 episodes. I think there's a few more as well, but I'm only on episode 11, so I'll report back next week.
It's funny, Barry, because before last week, I wouldn't have known what you were talking about, but my parents watched a lot of primetime, and so this was actually on, and I watched these very episodes as they were airing, and I wasn't really watching. I was kind of like listening, so I didn't get the full thing, but it's funny that you bring that up right after I had seen it. For me, I had a couple things that I could talk about. I'll talk about this one. While I was on my vacation, my watch, my Fitbit, I guess, took a turn for the worst. I went swimming, and it had a crack in it, so it's probably not smart of me to go swimming with it on with a crack in it. And then I went in the hot tub, and I think the crack got water in it, and then the heat broke the seal around it, and I was swimming in the other pool again, and then I see the front of the watch face just flopping around, and it's completely dead. And I bring that up not for pity, but just to talk about sort of how deeply I guess essential that thing is for me, because I constantly find myself reaching for my watch and to see what time it is, or even at night, the utility of being able to hit that button and see like a little tiny light to navigate shapes on the ground, with a toddler in the house. It's like, I don't want to step on anything. So, being able to click that in the middle of the night, we have night lights, but in some select places, or even be able, to do it as I'm getting into bed. It's dark. I just don't want to like trip on anything. And to be able to set timers too. I miss that functionality, and now I'm looking for another watch. And that's really all I have to say about that. It's just amazing how much something becomes a part of you. Like your phone is an extension of your being. That watch was an extension of my tools and capabilities. Anyway, that's it for today, everyone. If you like some of the discussion around space, I'll encourage you to go listen to episode 255, which was I've Had It with These Human Factors Robots on this Human Factors Space Station. Comment wherever you're listening with what you think of the story this week. For more in-depth discussion, you can always join us on our Discord community. Visit our official website, sign up for our newsletter, stay up to date with all the latest Human Factors news. If you like what you hear, you want to support the show, there's a couple things you can do. 1, wherever you're at right now, you can leave us a 5-star review. That really helps out the show. 2, this one helps us grow. You can tell your friends about us. Around the water cooler. Hey, these people were talking about deep space flight last night. It was really cool. And 3, if you have the financial means to do so, you want to send us a couple bucks, get access to a bunch of extra things, consider supporting us on Patreon. Just $1 gets you in the door. There's a bunch of tiers depending on how much you want to support, with varying levels of kickbacks to you. As always, links to all of our socials and our website are in the description of this episode. I want to thank Kate Preston for being on the show today. Where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about plants?
God, I have such a rep now for the plants. Twitter's probably Twitter is probably the best place. So it's Kate Preston 96 basically, or if you want LinkedIn, I do look at that as well, and that's just Kate Elizabeth Preston, I think. So yeah, please feel free to message me about plants, about slugs, about human factors, anything.
And Barry, where can our listeners go and find you if they want to talk about, I don't know, societal issues on Mars?
Well, I mean, that's clearly a very hot topic at the moment. So come and find me on Twitter at Baz_K or any of the other socials. I'm not difficult to find. But if you want to also come and listen to some in-depth interviews with human factors professionals and associated people, then find me on 1202 The Human Factors Podcast at 1202podcast.com.
As for me, I've been your host, Nick Roome. You can find me on Discord and across social media at Nick_Roome. Thanks again for tuning into Human Factors Cast. Until next time, it depends. All right, cool. We did it.
Yay!
Hey, Barry, there's a recurring sound. It sounds like somebody's like, there's water behind your station or something.
Is that coming from me? Because I thought that was coming from one of you. So
no, I think that's from you, because when you were talking, it came on earlier and it cut out your audio.
Yeah. I honestly don't know where that's coming from. There's clearly something up today, because normally my set of it's rock solid, but I did reboot it. I did refresh it in the in one of the breaks, which made it seem to hold up better. But I shall have a shakedown. I want to when you get to that moment where you actually want to take everything to bits, disconnect everything, and rewire everything up.
Yeah,
I'm kind of there. I think I need to do that, because I also need to look at this lighting, because I don't like the lighting either. Not helped by my shoulder's now very uncomfortable, so I'm about to pop a pill and things like that. But yeah, it was fun though. I enjoyed that. That was
a great yeah.
That was fun. I enjoyed that sort of conversation.
Yeah, it was really fun. And if really quick, I'll just do a quick plug. If any of our lab members or Patreon members want to get in on the action and voice your thoughts, we can do that here in the post show. If you go to any of the links that we posted on our Discord, you can find a link to the live dial-in, and come on in. Tell us what you want to talk about. We'll bring you on. It'll be a great conversation. And I think that's the plug. All right. Yeah. No. Is there anything that we talked about tonight that we wanted to talk about more? That's kind of what we use the post show for. I don't know. Like, I thought it was a really great topic, and really, really great having you on, Kate, for that. I always love it when it's just more than Barry or myself, because
it gets bored of me really quickly.
I get bored of Barry.
God, I know. Yeah, no, it's good. I enjoy doing these sort of things. I like off the cuff stuff.
It's no, it is. I mean, what is really interesting about whenever you get topics, particularly like this, because we get such a range of topics that some of them are like they go truly deep technical detail, and we'll go that, but they kind of go the way you think they're going to go. But then you'll get a topic like this, and we'll have done all the, like we did tonight. We've done all the notes, but actually we end up curveballing off almost somewhere else completely, and which is part of the fun. Then you suddenly realise you're almost out of time for the actual bit thing, and you've covered nothing that we've planned to do.
And that's when Barry comes in and says, "And to just be clear, the human factors and."
I know. I was looking at all the notes and I was like, okay, we've just talked about culture.
but that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
So
it is.
But would you guys go on a deep space mission?
Yep. Sorry, was that a big question?
Yeah, that was it. See ya.
Yeah,
I think I said this before the show, but I made my children cry because of this. When there was a story, must have been about 18 months ago, something like that, when they were talking about the first volunteers to go to Mars. And so whenever we talk about stuff, we tend to talk about around the dinner table and stuff. And I brought it up with Amanda and the kids and stuff to say, they're looking for families to do this. Wouldn't it be great if we went and did it? And the kids like, well, no, that'd be terrible. And I was like, if we had the opportunity, I'd sign us up in a heartbeat, and we'd just go. Like, how do we get back? And now it doesn't matter, because you're there. You get the chance to do, new things. And literally, Amanda's obviously sat there going, yeah, clearly we're not going to be on that list to sign up because, a whole not being an astronaut for one, but also the whole host of other reasons. But the kids obviously certain, as this was a couple of years ago, think that if Daddy said that we could do something, that clearly means that we are going to do something. And so there was floods of tears from at least 2 of them because they thought we were going to go to Mars next week, and they would miss all their friends and they wouldn't be able to go to scouts and things like that. And you're like, no, Daddy's ego is big, but there's no way he's getting us on a space shuttle anytime soon. But yeah, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I absolutely would. I'd love it.
I would not. Would not. No.
Why not?
Like,
why possibly?
I would miss all my friends and couldn't get into scouts. Like, I mean,
but you have better Wi-Fi linking from deep space than you do probably from your apartment or the cabin at the bottom of my garden. I've heard them calls with Tim Peake when he was on the ISS. That was crystal clear.
It was.
Okay. All right. Fair.
Yeah. I can't sure about it, if I'm honest. I'm like, yeah, of course I would. And I always joke with Harry. So Harry is a big space nut. Like, he loves it. He watches all the launches, everything, and I watch it with him, which does help my knowledge on these sort of things. And I do kind of, he's going to be a pilot, and I laugh at with him because it's more likely than me, from a human factors perspective, will go to space than he will as a kind of random pilot. And I think he's always like, are you serious? No, you wouldn't. I'm like, I probably would though. And I love winding him up about that.
Yeah, I guess the distinction for me would be, is this a pioneering expedition or is this transit to an existing colony? If it's a transit to an existing colony, I'm all for it. I'm totally for spaceflight. That's fine. But to be one of the first to set up shop there, that's not, no. I do want to bring up Vanessa. She's saying she can't dial in, but enrichment, interpersonal communication, and communication back home would be important to keep everyone sane. I think that's a great point. She continues on here. We're just like any other creature on Earth living in an unnatural habitat. We need enrichment, time in our enclosure.
It's true. Really. I would need people as much as I sometimes don't like people. I would.
I think possible. Could I get away with not talking to many people? I could probably live with that. But no, I think in terms of that pioneering, if you're just transiting and you knew you're gonna have to spend 3 years in stasis or whatever, whatever we've made to actually get there, I think if you're just going there just to go and live up there, I don't know whether I'd be that bothered. I'm not a massive fan of international travel, for example, because I'm just like, you just got to see somewhere else. But to be a pioneer in doing it and doing the firsts, I just think that would be like, whoa, because I don't know, there's something about the whole, you're gonna have to solve problems that you can't prepare for. You don't know what you're gonna have to deal with. You prepare some stuff, hopefully, like oxygen and that sort of stuff. But when you get there, you're gonna have to solve problems, and we don't know what they're going to be. That'd just be so cool. I guess that's one of the reasons I think I enjoy doing what I do, is because yes, we've got in the human factors world, we've got methods, we do all that good stuff, but actually, I spend probably 70% of my job is rather than doing perfect human factors, is probably firefighting. You're going in, there's a problem, you're going in and you're saying, right, okay, we need to solve the problem. How do we go ahead and do that? We go ahead and do it like this, and making that work. I just think that would be absolutely fascinating. And this falls into that arena. So yeah, if Elon's got a spare seat in, preferably one that doesn't blow up. I'm not down with the ones with the starships that blow up, but ones that we've proven that actually work. Yeah, I'd happily take this.
Yeah, I think the problem about being the first is that kind of, is it going to blow up? Are we going to not? I'm going to run out of oxygen. I'm just not sure I'm for that life. But that short life.
Yeah.
But you would have gone out trying to pioneer something special. You'd be remembered.
Yeah, but you'd be dead.
Yeah, you would be. Yes, no, that is absolutely true. But you'd be remembered.
But you'd probably have your own series on Netflix. There'd be the mockumentary of what could have been. There'd have been the interviews with you before you went. You probably have a brick with your name on it somewhere. I mean, what more can you want? apart from life, obviously.
A library named after you, like.
Oh, I just the thought of a Netflix documentary about me is just can you imagine? She spent most of her life in front of the TV and her computer, and then she went to space.
With her pet slugs that she got from the garden.
Yeah. No, they're not pets, they're evil. The plants and the slugs of the air. Seriously, life-changing. I thank my mum for it.
To be fair, if the other slug community found out that actually what you did with the slugs was take them to space, that would surely scare the rest of them off.
It's true, yeah. Yeah, actually, you leave those plants alone because I'll take you to space. I'll come back and get you.
Novel.
Yeah. I wonder how they would last. Would slugs need community? Sorry, this is going off on an absolute tangent. Would they need a community in deep space?
Well, look, they wouldn't have any bone decomposition, would they?
No, they'd probably be all right.
They're just a bit of muscle, really, aren't they?
Yeah.
You're right. This is possibly the most tangential we've been on a post show.
Sorry, still things.
But this is why we have a post show, is to relax and chill out, and then you can also see if people are actually paying attention by the amount of comments you get in. But no, I do think it was quite interesting because I think when I think I said in the show when we talked about a lot of human processes depending on gravity to actually work properly. What was the first thought that went through your mind when? What was your first human process that you thought of when you read that?
Go to the toilet.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bit awkward.
That's why I didn't say it in the main show because it was like, but clearly we're all thinking the same thing. Gravity was on one major thing, or two major things. But,
there was a video about that. Was it Tim Peake or was it the guy who was there for a year and names are terrible with me?
Scott. I can't remember his name.
Yeah, that guy. They did do videos on these sorts of things, like how it works, like how we brush our teeth and how we brush our hair and we do laundry, and I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, I watch all these.
It's that sort of thing I like sort of geek out on because it's the sort of stuff that you take for granted, that you don't think about, like when you're suddenly in space and you're like going, oh yeah, how do you do this really simple thing that you just know is going to happen? You're like, oh right, okay, that's just taking a mouthful of water, because the way it comes out and you have to like force it down. Yeah, it's and that's only really going to the ISS, which is not comparatively not that far away. To then having to learn to live like that for a period of time to get to wherever it is you're going, is something else. And then the other bit that I guess you don't see with astronauts and stuff is they have sensors all over their bodies, literally everywhere, and that brings, I guess, a whole. It will bring you a whole new boarding experience as if you got there as a traveller. So because you'd all have to line up to go to use the loos first to get censored up before you went. And
make sure there's no issues with podcast recording.
Yeah, absolutely that.
Yeah,
but
I along the lines of Kate dying in a launch here, I've asked ChatGPT to do something fun for us here. So this is an expose from the future. This is Kate Preston.
Right.
That name resonates with bravery and sacrifice. An astronaut who ventured beyond Earth's atmosphere, only to meet a tragic end. But beyond the solemn facade of heroism lies a peculiar secret waiting to be unveiled. It seems our beloved space hero, Kate Preston, had a secret gardening strategy that could raise a few eyebrows. But is this revelation just a harmless quirk or a reflection of a deeper, more bizarre side to her personality?
Oh Lord, it really is. I love that. That's literally, make that my obituary, seriously. I will tell you though, there was a funny thing that happened when I had filled up my beer cups for the slugs like 10 a.m. in the morning, and I walked out my garden, put them in the bin, and I'm carrying, it's cheap beer as well, like I'm not spending money on these slugs, and I'm walking down the garden and I'm going to the bin that goes onto the kind of street, and people walk past and they're looking at me and I'm using empty beer cans at 10 in the morning, and then I say something stupid because I'm socially awkward. And I'm something like, oh, hi, I just did something weird. I can't remember what it was. And the look they gave me, it's like, no, I'm not half cut on cheap beer. I'm feeding the slugs, but you never get the opportunity to explain yourself, and they'd probably think I was mad anyway. Oh, yeah, obituary's right.
Maybe we need to do that. Is get ChatGPT to write all of our obituaries and have an obituary show. Because if you got the obituary, you'd have to then backfill
the story.
Why that was the way it was. There's a spin-off podcast here, isn't there? Human Factors obituaries before they're needed.
I have a million spin-off podcast ideas. Let's just start with safe and effective, and we'll keep moving on from there.
So we'll just keep the finger on the pulse and see what happens. Do you see what I did there? I thought that was great. That was hilarious. Barry's, what is it? Barry's brief banter, brainy behavior. B9.
B9. Well, B8 because we took out brief because you keep it over 30 minutes.
But that's true. But if you could find another B, then B9 would also be benign, and therefore that's a double spin thing. Probably a bit too subtle for even me.
Benign, yeah.
Yeah. And benign isn't probably the best interesting podcaster name you could ever get to.
Yeah. Is there a lot of podcasts with the Pulse as its name? Because I don't know whether you guys are joking or not.
Yeah.
There's a lot.
I was going to say, I was like, I'm quite surprised there isn't.
Yeah, no, there really is.
There's only one, really.
Pulse podcast. Let's see here. Let's just do a quick. So there's NPR, the Pulse. There's Y.org. What is Y? Is that World Health? It's PBS. PBS, NPR. Looks like New York Public Radio, Inside Higher Ed,
but they're all on the
Preston.
Same. I guess we're all doing the same thing. I mean, what other words could you use that sort of indicate like the ongoing health of the organization, which is basically what they're doing? Town halls is because we were looking at it could be the CITF town hall. But then that does indicate a bit more of an interactive nature. Though Ben, this week when we recorded, he did sort of say, "Do you think we could do this live?" And I was like, "Well,
like a town hall."
Yeah, I was like, we have the capability through Restream and that to do it. That's easy. But is that something you'd want to do? Because we do similar setup to this. We have a bit of a plan. Or we have a list of the events that have gone on the past 2 weeks, list of events going on the upcoming piece, and then some other bits that are going on. It's not difficult. It's not rocket science. But to do it live, you'd then be really waiting for people. You do it through people's lunchtime, so then they can come into it and all this sort of stuff. And I think it'd be good to do. But I think we're going to try and do get a couple more under our belt as we're doing it, and then we're going to experiment with some live stuff and see what happens. But I'm quite pleased that came from him rather than me sort of suggesting, we do this live every Thursday. I think it's a piece of cake. Why don't we do this live? But we shall see.
Very cool. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to it.
Oh, thank you very much. I think it's. Ben does make it very easy. What is interesting, which you'll find out if you listen to it, or listen to his interview, which has just gone live, is he was doing podcasts before they were cool. So because he used to work for the BBC, they would do snippets of or short form answers of different elements of some of their longer programs, and but they didn't call them podcasts then. It was just like on-demand content, and obviously now they're podcasts. So he's got really good history in that sort of stuff, which is why I think he's also quite keen to do this. Yeah, no, it's exciting. But as we were saying in the pre-show, there's a lot of podcasts popping up now. We need to try and corral them in and make them friends. So
yeah, Well, I mean, there's so many different ways that you could have gone with the name, Barry. You could have gone with the CIEHF podcast. You could have gone with, Ergo Excellence Unveiled, or whatever you think of. Ergo Cast.
Oh, Ergo Cast would work actually. Yeah.
Ergo Fun with the CIEHF bunch.
Possibly not the tone I'm looking for.
Ergo Nerds. Ergo Mania.
Oh, that has to be a podcast called Ergomania. That sounds good.
Ergo Amazing Discoveries, the CIEHF journey.
Yeah, that's true.
Factor Fiesta, Unleashing Human Factors with the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors.
Factor Fiesta, I love that.
That's got different connotations around it. But,
Ergo Fizz, Bubbling with Human Factors from the Chartered Institute.
Oh, the level of... I don't think it works for a podcast, but I definitely see us having some, custom-made Prosecco for next year with called Ergo Fizz. That's genius.
The Ergo Files.
You'd have people win it. That'd be great. I would definitely win that.
I'm going to write that one down because I like that.
Ergo Fizz.
Ergo Fizz. I'm going to brew. We need to brew some of our own Prosecco, and just even elderflower wine, which I can make. We could call it Ergo Fizz. I like it.
Ergo Fizz. All right, you heard it here first. Hey, we got to wrap up. This has been a great show. It's midnight for both of you, so we'll go ahead and get out of here. Kate, thank you so much again for being on the show tonight. Barry, thanks for showing up.
Makes a change.
Doing the thing. I'm sorry. Sir Barry Kirby, president of the Chartered Institute of Ergonomics and Human Factors.
That's better. And I expect more reverence next time. Thank you.
Sorry, sir. I will bow down. All right, everyone. Thank you so much. We'll be back next week with some more fun topics. In fact, if you want to go vote on next week's topics, which we usually preview, you can go ahead and scan this little doodad here. There's some fun stuff there. Choose the news for next week. Anyway, we will be back then to talk about fun stuff. And we'll see you then. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Are you tired of boring lectures and textbooks on human factors and UX? Well, grab your headphones and get ready for a wild ride with the Human Factors Minute podcast. Each minute is like a mini crash course packed with valuable insights and information on various organizations, conferences, usability methods, theories, models, certifications, tools, and much more. We'll take you on a journey through the fascinating world of human factors, from the ancient history to the latest trends and developments. Listen in as we explore the field and discover new ways to enhance the user experience. From the Think Aloud protocol to the critical incident technique, focus groups, iterative design, we'll make sure that you're the smartest person in the room. Tune in on the 10th, the 20th, and the last day of every month for a new and interesting tidbit related to human factors. Don't miss out on the Human Factors Minute podcast, your ultimate source for all things human factors.
Human Factors Cast brings you the best in human factors news, interviews, conference coverage, and overall fun conversations into each and every episode we produce. But we can't do it without you. The Human Factors Cast network is 100% listener supported. All the funds that go into running the show come from our listeners. Our patrons are our priority, and we want to ensure we're giving back to you for supporting us. Pledges start at just $1 per month and include rewards like access to our monthly Q&As with the hosts, personalized professional reviews, and access to the full library of Human Factors Minute, a weekly podcast where the hosts break down unique, obscure, and interesting human factors topics in just 1 minute. Patreon rewards are always evolving, so stop by patreon.com/humanfactorscast to see what support level may be right for you. Thank you, and remember, it depends.